Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Be Like Christ. We are studying every chapter of the Bible in 5 minutes, roughly, sometimes a little bit more. But today we are in Proverbs 19, and we have a free PDF that accompanies all of these studies. You can download it for free at tobelikechrist.com. Links are in the description. Chapter 19, this is a good one. I had a hard time narrowing down the Proverbs that I wanted to select out of this one. In fact, I have 4 today instead of 3 for that reason. But let's first break down the book of Proverbs and talk about where we are in that breakdown. So the first 9 chapters we've already finished, the way of wisdom versus the way of folly. We've now moved into the second section, which are the Proverbs of Solomon. And of course, we're in chapter 19 today. So we've got roughly 10 more chapters of these wise proverbs from King Solomon. Our definitions, we've got 3 different words I want to look at, and I think we've looked at all of these before. Can't remember if we looked at the second one or not, but I think a lot of people know these, but we just want to put these here for clarification. A lot of times it's easy to skip over words, and you kind of think you know what they mean, but maybe not really. The first one is prudence. This appears in verse 14. Acting carefully, moving through life cautiously and thoughtfully. A wise person is a prudent person. And then we have sluggard. A wise person is not a sluggard. It reminds you of what kind of animal? Slug, right? They're really slow. This is a lazy person who's really slow to do their work. And then number 3, a scoffer in verse 25. This is a mocker, someone who makes fun of something or someone. And of course, as we go through this study, especially through the Proverbs of Solomon, keep in mind our interpretive principle, and that is that the Proverbs are speaking about principles, not absolute promises. So as I mentioned, I've got 4 Proverbs today, and we'll take a little less time on each one because we have one extra one today. The first one is going to be Proverbs 19, verse 3. When a man's folly brings his way to ruin, his heart rages against the Lord. So foolish men, when they get themselves into trouble, rather than accepting the responsibility for their bad actions, they look for somebody else to blame. And many fools blame God for getting them into trouble. Have you ever heard somebody, cry out or ask, God, why did you allow this to happen to me? Or God, why did you make me this way that I would act this way? If a fool gets into trouble, it's because he's not listening to God in the first place. God is not to blame. He shouldn't be blaming God. He should be taking responsibility for his actions, accepting his guilt, repenting of his sins, and asking God to help him change his foolish heart to a wise heart. Proverb number 2 for today comes from verse 14. House and wealth are inherited from fathers, but a prudent wife is from the Lord. Now, wealth can be passed down from generation to generation. Your parents can give it to you. You can inherit it. But you can't really do that with a wife. A man has to go looking for a wife, and a prudent wife is very hard to find. If a man succeeds in finding such a woman, it's because God has brought her to him. So all of you men who are married to wise women, and I would include myself in that category, let's remember to thank God for our wives. God has given those things to us. It's not, I know we'd like to think it's because of our good looks and our charm, but that's, it's more God than it is those things. For proverb number 3, we need to jump down to verse 17. Whoever is generous to the poor lends to the Lord, and he will repay him for his deeds. When you give money away, you don't always know the outcome of your generosity. Will that person use your money wisely? Will they waste it? Will they ever pay you back if they're supposed to pay you back? We can't always know the answers to those questions, unfortunately. But this verse reassures us that God always takes note of our generosity, and he will reward us for it. So we don't necessarily need to think about or know all the details about the outcome. God knows those things. Being generous to a needy person is like lending money to God. If you lend money to God, do you think he would pay you back if he was supposed to, if it was a loan? Yeah, of course. God doesn't forget about his commitments, and he won't forget about our kindness. What we give, God will give back to us, so give generously. We may not get that full payback while we're here on earth. That's not guaranteed to us, but certainly heaven will be worth it all. And now proverb number 4 comes from verse 19. A man of great wrath will pay the penalty, for if you deliver him, you will only have to do it again. You can get an angry man out of trouble, or a wrathful man out of trouble, but if he doesn't get his temper under control, it won't be long before he finds himself in more trouble. As followers of Jesus, we need to be very careful about keeping our tempers under control. Anger very rarely produces holy actions. James writes about this in the New Testament in a verse that we've actually looked at before in our Proverbs study about being slow to speak, but it also says something about anger. He says, "Know this, my beloved brothers, let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, also slow to anger, for the anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God." If fits of rage are causing you repeated problems in your life, you can patch up those problems individually as they arise as a consequence of your out-of-control anger, but the way to prevent those problems from arising in the first place is to ask God to help you to get your anger under control. Those are our highlighted Proverbs from Proverbs 19. I hope you enjoyed the study today, and Lord willing, we'll be back to get into the 20s tomorrow, Proverbs chapter 20. It feels like it's flying by. We've got 31 total chapters, and we've got roughly 11 to go now. If you don't mind leaving a like on this video, and of course, if you're not subscribed and you don't want to miss out on future studies, remember to subscribe to the channel. Lord willing, I'll see you tomorrow. Until then, have a great day.